Inspirationnation. Hello, Lee Kemp here for another week on a podcast, as always, with Joe Noya and Ryan Boniface. How are we this week, guys?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah, good, thanks, Lee.
How are you?
What I like to hear. There we go. Ryan gave in and did it. I'm good as well. Thank you.
We're not doing this anymore. I'm not doing it anymore.
We're giving up on that. Okay. We've drawn the line under it. Episode, what is this? 91, and we're going to stop bullying Lee. Results.
Oh, no. I never said we were going to stop bullying Lee. I just said I'll start asking how you are.
Fair enough, that works. We are, of course, on all podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all of the rest. On YouTube as well. Hit subscribe on any of those if you want to hear us each and every Tuesday. And right now as well, Joe is live streaming us on Instagram.
Certainly am. Here we are.
So, multiple ways to get the nation. Don't forget as well, follow us on social media. We on the show are at ListenToIN, ListenToIN. Joe just put Jose Noya, Jose Noya, Inspirationnation into pretty much any social media platform that exists, and you will get a face full of Joe.
So, I've not heard that before. A face full of Joe.
I don't know if that's an encouragement or a detriment.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you meant that one, Lou.
What are we talking about this week, Joe?
Right, this week you're going to be shocked. This week we're talking about the title of the show is "Don't Think Positive Now." I'm going to repeat that. Don't think positive now.
Look at this. You've shaved off your Movember tash and you turned into a different person.
We spent 91 weeks saying the exact opposite.
So I thought you might think, oh, what is going on?
I'm intrigued, Joe. I'm intrigued. Let us have it.
So the thing is that I know when, things are difficult and the last thing you want someone to say to you is think positive. This is what it's about, right? So when I was really struggling, and I know I've referenced it a few times on podcasts, you don't want someone to go, oh, do you know what you want to do? Think positive. Because what's your reaction if I say that to you? Even now, just think positive, Ryan. Just think positively. What's your immediate response?
I mean, given your additional patronising tone that you put on top of that voice when you said it, when you're in a bad place and your mind's thinking bad things and people just try and shut you down on it, it can make it a lot worse, can't it?
Yeah, well, you don't want to think positive, do you?
No.
So when I was, go on, Ryan, go on.
If I wanted to think positively, I would in those scenarios.
Exactly.
Somebody saying think positively isn't going to make me go, God, what a donut. Well, that's all I have to do, isn't it? It don't work that way, does it?
Exactly, right? Because we've got our defences and we're naturally going to push away from that. So the thing I want to talk about really is the reason why we might be in a difficult place, especially what's going on at the minute. Now we've got, we've heard about COVID and all that. Now we've got potential vaccines, obviously things are starting to hopefully looking a bit better for everybody, which is a great thing, really. But I was just going to say that, still are going to be struggling out there. And the last thing people want to hear, and if people are out there trying to help or lift up others up, oh, why don't you just think positive, And you can get excited because there is some excitement about once you get in the habit of thinking differently, you do get excited. But, you can get over exuberant and that can really, like Ryan said, either it can be really obvious, oh, we should think positive and do the head slap, right? Or you're just going to resist it. You're going to resist it. So it's just really around how do we change ourselves, and looking from a place of empathy and kindness to ourselves, really, about how we're going to approach it. So I was listening to someone called Joe Dispenza, and I was really impressed by what he said. And when we're in a really bad spot, it's because when we think, our bodies respond to how we think, right? So our thoughts are things. And he was saying, because we've been thinking in a space, and we've talked about this before, about the mind and how we've got the amygdala, which is a survival mechanism, which is going to keep you safe, but it can make you feel fearful. It can make you feel negative because it wants to keep you safe. It doesn't want you to go out there doing things because it's fearful and it doesn't want you to go out there. A bit like what we talked about before in the chimp paradox. Your body is used to feeling that. So when you start to introduce sort of different thoughts, like, oh, maybe I'm going to just be grateful for one thing, or your mind's going to start resisting it. But also when you try and think it, your body's not going to be used to that. And your body is then going to feel uncomfortable with that. So it's either going to try and attack it with cynicism, or it's going to say, well, I'm just uncomfortable. I don't want to think like that. So when people would say to me when I was in a difficult place, oh, pull your socks up, or try this, or try that, or I would feel that resistance because my body wasn't ready for the change. It didn't want to change. And so there's this whole piece about really I would say introducing micro steps to do something different, but it's got to be from a place where you want to do it. Like we've talked about before, like Ryan and Lee, about things like, you know, making the bed, or just trying something really small to try and shift it. So the whole point of this particular episode is just to say to people, hey, we don't want you to think positive. Don't think positive now. Just try different things that are going to start to lift you in a different way, in a micro way, and take what you need rather than trying to do what people say, what feels right for you in a way that's going to serve you, whether it's for an emotional point, whether you need to feel that emotion and try something different, whether you need to just rest, whether you just need to look at yourself and go, okay, what's the best thing for me right now, taking into consideration where my circumstances are? Do I want to improve at the moment, or do I just need to have a reset and just take it easy for the moment until I'm in a better place to sort of try a different thing? So I suppose today really is a bit of an empathic podcast, because I want to recognise that there's people that are going to really struggle with the change. But all I want to say in this podcast is that it is possible, and that, you know, in my own personal journey, that it just does take a lot of time, you know, and to get to this point, it's taken me 20 years, right? So it's not, you know, it can be a quick process for some people. It can be a decision. But for some people, it might take time, because we've conditioned ourselves to feel in a certain way. And as we said before, our brains are conditioned and have certain patterns that are hard to jump out of those grooves. And we want to shift into new grooves, and our bodies aren't used to that whole different feeling that it's going to give us when we haven't. I thought it was a really good take on what he said. So that's what Joe Dispenza was talking about, because we we want to think differently, but we're going to resist it because our bodies aren't used to that feeling. So I know I've said quite a bit there, so I just wanted to get your thoughts on it, guys.
I think my immediate thought flips back onto the other person saying it. Whilst I made the joke that obviously saying that isn't going to make me feel better, realistically, what do you want them to say? Sometimes you could just say, well, nothing, but that isn't always an option. If somebody approaches you and says, oh, you look really glum, what's the matter? And you go, well, I don't know, I've had some terrible news and whatever. It isn't human nature to just look at you plain-faced and go, okay, and then walk off. That just isn't how human interaction really works. So I think for me, maybe that's just where I'm growing an empathetic side, maybe, that I immediately think, well, what is that person supposed to say? Like, what are they supposed to say to me other than chin up, keep your head up, or whatever? What more are they supposed to do, I guess? In terms of being in that position and things like that, I think everyone's been there, haven't they, really? Whether it's because you're really stressed at work, or things have actually happened at home or personally or whatever. I think everyone's kind of been in that position. I think it varies person to person. Some people have and scenario to scenario, some people have the mental foresight maybe to understand that the person's coming from a place of genuineness, I guess. Sometimes depending on the scenario or the person, it's the last thing you want to hear, isn't it? So it's very much a tricky subject, I think, to approach from either side, for sure.
I do think the nothing thing does have a place sometimes. Like you said, Ryan, it's not human nature just to ignore people and walk off. But there is something I've learned with this, which is and it's counterintuitive, but it isn't just to ignore, but maybe just acknowledge. Because sometimes when people are in a bad place, long term or short term, and they're kind of offloading what that problem is, they don't necessarily want to be thrust into a solution there and then. Yeah. They just literally just want to offload that problem and that someone acknowledges it.
Yeah.
And again, the same way, like we're saying there, is it can push the wrong sort of reaction, because they might be feeling stressed by it, and then you start throwing loads of actions back at them, and actually it adds to the stress possibly rather than taking away from it. So, like I said, it is tricky when people talk like that. And like you said, Joe, I think it is the small steps thing. I mean, you, in another way, not something that was a bad thing, but like when I've been pushing myself to do the running and stuff like that, of which I've done very little of late, I'll say. But when I'm back to the first time, I remember you saying it's not about planning to go running tomorrow, just buy the shoes. And the next day, just put the shoes on. And the next day, just put the shoes on and walk out the front door and come back in again. And making those, like you said, the little micro steps to ease into the change bit by bit every day, rather than trying to change everything at once and push back. And like you said, and not thought about it before, but get that physical pushback because you're trying to do too much at once. And I suppose in terms of the message for this, is that the thing you're advocating is, it's not about jumping from negative to positive. It's just taking those small little steps in the right direction. Would that be right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just about that piece around, what's going to work for me. And again, and is it it's the smallest step, because I usually find that people want to take massive steps, that they either want to take massive steps or don't want to do nothing at all. That's what I find. It's like, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Sometimes people can get a little bit excited and go, I'm going to do this, and this, and then they don't do anything because it's too overwhelming, or they just don't want to do anything at all. I didn't want to do anything at all. Literally, what you said to me, I didn't want to do anything because I was so fed up, right? So I had to have that place or space not to do anything, and just to sit in that space for a bit. And the turnaround for me was like, just got very fed up with it. And I got fed up with it. Because I talk about identify your enemy, which for me was the depression. And I identified the enemy, and then that hope, I had hope in me all the time, but I had to sit with it for a bit because I had to process it all. But if someone said to me, start thinking positive, then I'd just been like Ryan said, like, I just say, well, I don't want to do it. What are you talking about? But there's brilliant things like, thanks, Perry Dodgers. Got Perry Dodgers, Tayab, we've got on. As well, got Nina on. Thank you guys for Instagram. So, yeah, for me, it was just like taking those steps. But it's like having things around, like the environment. So my mum means all the work, the world to me. And she just bought me a book and didn't give, sort of just said, here's a book, but didn't actually say, read the book. Just said, here's a book. And so it wasn't actually, here, read it. Which I'm very tempted to say to people. And I do say that to people because I think they're great. But when you're in that, you've got to identify where that person is really. Are they ready to read books or whatever? What's their emotional place? Like Ryan said, how do you tell where people are? You've got to have that emotional intelligence, right, to understand that. And like what Ryan says, if people say, I'm not in a good space at the minute, can you leave me alone? Like, just keep checking on them, see where they are, but not to be that pushy person because they're going to push back. So me, it was just like that book was there. So it'd just be a case of, I picked it up. And then that's when I started picking it up and I thought, I'll just read a bit. And I read a bit and this, and then it starts to give you that sort of different perspective because it's someone else. Basically, that book was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers, because it talked about the chatterbox. It talked about self-talk and things like that. And when I was going through that phase, I can't remember if I mentioned on the podcast, but that I didn't recognise, or wasn't self-aware enough to recognise that everyone does have a voice, right? Everyone has this voice, and I didn't recognise that people had that. So that for me was where it was really. So it's really those baby steps really, and taking it into that space. But for me, is this whole thoughts are things piece, which really now it's such a powerful thing. Even today, I had a conversation with someone that thoughts are actual things. Like thoughts actually do affect your body, right? You will actually release cortisol because your mind doesn't actually recognise. If you imagine a fearful situation, it will produce the same chemicals as if you were facing something fearful.
Yeah.
Which I think is super powerful when you think about that. So it stands to reason that if you start to think about things that will serve you, that you will start to get different chemical body changes that will actually start to make you feel better.
I've definitely found that over the last, just over a year and a half that we've been doing this, Joe, and you forced me out of my social media free world into the world of social media.
That was
People go all the way back in the archives to the first few episodes, probably something like 1 to 10. All you'll hear is Joe saying, get on Twitter, get on Twitter, get on Twitter. And as you know, each week now, all I do is batter on about Twitter now. But because of that and because of Instagram and the groups we're in, I see a lot of this positive stuff every day, the positive message that are there, the reaffirming messages, the encouraging people to do things, stepping out your comfort zone, dream big, all that sort of stuff. And I remember at first it was, and like you said there, it was quite overwhelming because you've just got this barrage of people saying, you can do it, go on, you can do it, I'm doing it, why can't you do it too? And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
But actually now I feed off that energy because I've moved into that space and I've been comfortable with that. And actually it fuels me now, and it really does. And there's people I know who I've encouraged to do the same thing, who started to look at that stuff, and at first not so sure with it, and then they kind of stepped into it, and it's built up and gone on the same journey I went to with it. So you're definitely right about that you change. And I think you're probably right, is those positive chemicals are coming out more and more and more as I look at it, because that's where my mind's going to. But I didn't just click my fingers. That's been an evolution over the last 18 months to get me there.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I say, you and Ryan, I know you and Ryan, I'm all right, and call me out if I'm not, but introverted, right? Quite got introverted tendencies.
I know what you want about.
Ryan sits there in his gaming lab, and I'm here with my Xbox behind me and my microphone in front of me. No, what are you talking about? And my Fortnite accessories on the wall. No, 100% right, Joe.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting because I've got Nina on Insta. Welcome, Nina. Thank you. And she was just quickly sort of saying, she said she's never read so many books before lockdown, so she's sort of used it to her advantage, which is quite nice. No, but you're right. So for you, like for me to suggest, like, and this is the thing I think is, as we grow, and I've known you for many years, and Ryan, we've got to know each other now over doing this sort of thing, which is great. When we do all these things, and now Ryan actually going onto Twitch now, right? And I know you've done some previous stuff before, but like Ryan's been going crazy with the Twitch. But it's like, it is about leaning into those things. But again, we've got to be conscious of what we do with people and recognise that, it can be overwhelming. But we can hold people's hands. We can guide them in. And if they do feel fearful, we can be there for them and support them through those micro steps. That's what I'm hoping with this podcast will do. Well, if you're thinking of doing something that's a little bit scary, just take a micro step. But remember that, like, we're here. We're doing it. We're living and breathing the thing that we say we do. But what we're trying to say to you is that if you are in a difficult space, don't think positive. Just don't think positive now. Just take some steps for you to assess where you are and think what things you want to change. Are you so fed up? Like, and that's what I had. Are you so fed up with your situation that you want things to change? And I think when you get to that point, that's when you're ready for change. But you have to be ready for change in terms of your own mindset, because it is in the mind. This all happens in the mind, and people always think, I've got to just do something. But you've got to get the mindset right first, and other things will follow. If you get that inside game right, it's so important to get that right. So it's just, for me, it's just recognizing that. And this is the thing I found through the podcast and articulating all these things, that your thoughts will impact what they call it, the biochemistry of your body, which is so powerful when you think about it. And that's how top performers perform. They visualize things that they want to do, and their body imagines that actually they are doing it. And that's what creates the pattern for them to do what they and perform well. They've done a few experiments where they've had people visualize and practice, and people just practice, and the people who visualize and practice actually become better at what they do. So there's a lot in that, I think. So that's why I wanted to change it. And I know it shocked you guys a little bit around don't think positive now, which I thought, but Joe, last 90 episodes or whatever, we've been talking about thinking, but it's not really about thinking positive. And I don't want to do any fake stuff. I'm very into I don't want anything to be fake. I want it to be authentic, and I want it to be real. That's all. I don't want people to think, I've got to go rah rah, because that's not right too, because you're building.
You can't force it.
Yeah, and I think actually you referenced it on your own podcast, Lee, about the one that I've listened to about Ethan goes on about building foundations. All right, about it's so important to get your foundations right with your mindset stuff. Oh dear, Ryan's shaking his head. But it's like the foundation is so important. The foundation to everything that you do is your mindset. It just builds off everything. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what you do, whether you do what you do in your podcast, and whether you're doing anything, you're doing gaming, you have to build the blocks, right? So Ryan's doing his gaming now on his Twitch stream. So to do that, he's going on his Twitch, right? But he's helping, he's like showing people what to do, giving tips. But this is like Ryan's base, right? And he's building this whole thing, which is fantastic. And I think it's anything you've got to start. If you start building too quickly, you'll build a skyscraper. It would be all out of kilter because you've not built a strong base. And so I suppose this is what I'm thinking about this is as I'm talking, is that don't think positive now is being in the right place to choose your right space for you to move, but make sure that you treat yourself with empathy. Make sure you do treat yourself kindly, and then build from there.
Like you said, Joe, you're true to yourself and you're authentic. Because if you fake being happy, it puts an amount of stress on you, doesn't it? And people pick up on insincerity, whether it's consciously or subconsciously as well. And I think you're so right about that.
Yeah, I agree. And even when I was like really going through my bad times, I was actually putting on a front to be happy. You wouldn't have told any difference. I mean, you said you didn't see any difference, but inside I was dying. But that took so much energy out of me that I had to put into anything like that. So that's why I wish I had a podcast like this or something like this that I could refer to that would help me, that would go, I could refer to it. I could maybe, as Nina and the lovely Cindy here as well, lovely Nina and Cindy on Instagram, having a community of people that are going to support each other. And these guys are always on here supporting. And that's what it is. It's like connecting with people who are really trying to support you. And that if you reach out, and if you reach out, you're going to find people that are going to want to support you. It's amazing if you look for those things that you will find them. And if you do start to reach out, you will attract that type of person that you want to connect with. So it depends on how you look at things. It's so important. Again, I do like Einstein's saying where he says, whether you think the universe is hostile or friendly, you're going to be right. So you're either going to live in a friendly universe or a hostile universe. And this is Einstein. This is a super intelligent guy. And, these are geniuses. And like, you've got to listen to that.
Yeah.
I mean, people think, oh, well, if I look at something and think, oh, I'm going to look at it differently, how is that going to change? But these guys are geniuses and they know what they're talking about. So however you look at things is going to be the way you respond to it. So it's so important that we start to shift and start to look at things differently so we can, don't think positive now, but take steps to look at things a bit differently so you can start to make changes that are going to make you feel a little bit better each day at a time.
It's good message. I like it. And I think we all have. You, Joe, will say you have. I have. I think Ryan as well. Since we've been doing this podcast, and people can track it going through the episodes. I think all of our thinking is shaped and been changed by the things we've been talking about. But it hasn't been like stellar monumental changes. I'm really tripping over my words today. This is good. This is good for broadcasting, right? Not being able to pronunciate. Strong.
Pronunciate is brilliant.
But it's been little incremental changes week by week with the conversations we're having and the different things we're exposed to. And we've just changed bit by bit. And over the next, year, 2 years, 3 years, I think that will keep going. I certainly feel like I'm and in a genuine, authentic way, a more positive person in how I approach my life, how I treat other people, which I think is all for the good, which I didn't even necessarily intend that would happen as a part of this, but it just has. And I think part of that, Joe, back to your message there, is about me being a lot more open to change and challenging myself and development and looking at others. And it's just, again, bit by bit, those changes have just come through.
Yeah. And again, I think another thing on that, and I don't know what you think about this, Ryan, but what about being open-minded? I think even in the past, I haven't been open-minded. I think in the past, I've like wanted an idea and I want to be like that, and I've not left myself open. I think even if you don't agree, I think to have an open mind to try and see it from someone else's point of view, you might pick something up that's going to help you. And before, I'd be so determined on that idea that I'd almost be blinkered. Like I'd be so, no, that's
like
not
tunnel
right.
Vision on it.
Right. That is not right because this is right. And I think when you're in that space when you're not great, that's what can happen. You can be so tunnel vision that you're not open to these new things that you can try, right? If someone had said to me back then, I don't know what you think about this, Ryan, but if you just think different, if you just try and visualize a life that's, the life that you want, and that you can start to take small actions towards that. And if you try, you will start to make steps like this podcast, for instance, and like the things that we've created over the last 2 years. If we'd said that now from then, you'd probably go, well, what do you mean? You'd never got to this. You haven't released a podcast. You've done 90 episodes. You probably think, well, that's just not realistic. We couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But as we step into it, as we really believe in the whole thing of support and helping people, we're bringing like people on Instagram coming in now, right? So like Nina and I say Cindy here, so you've got to thank you. It's good to have a positive support system, right? We wouldn't have had this for the first podcast. Now we're going on Instagram. This was just not a thing, right? And so you present, well, what do you mean? People connect with it. And so it's just getting that little shift if you can. But being open-minded, I think, is the key. And I think that's what you're alluding to, Lee. And that's where I think a lot of us can come. And I was definitely cynical. Cynicism is a killer. So that's what I got to say on that one.
It's a good message. Odd week, Ryan, this week, isn't it? Joe's somber. Not somber, that's the wrong word. More subdued message.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's good because normally it's like go out and change the world. And this is very much look after yourself, which is a really important message as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, go on, Ryan. You're going to say something.
No. That was pretty much it, mate.
Yeah, because I think the whole thing is that, you know, I do love giving a lot of energy, and I just wanted to sort of have a podcast episode where I want people to contemplate, like, and just think where you are, sit for a moment, be in the present moment, like, sit in that moment for a minute, like, and actually sort of reflect and think, okay, so what could be better? What could be slightly better? A 0.001%, just even that is going to shift, because usually I'm more like 10%, 100%. You know, it's like I can be a little bit crazy, and I've recognised that, you know, sometimes I have to dial this back, right? I have to dial it back and just think, okay, look, we're going to just like take a step back from everything. If it's too much, then take a step back. It's okay. It's all right. It's your life, right? It's your journey. We're all on individual journeys. We can meet up from time to time. We've got these joint things, but individually, we are having to live this life. We are inside our bodies, looking out, really. Right? It depends on how we feel inside. It's all an inside game. And so we can get this inside part right, which is the mindset and how you feel. And, you know, I really want people to sort of think deeply about where they are and where they want to be, but not put pressure. I've got to be this or I've got to be that. It's like, just be you and evolve you. Like, what is a great version of you? But really, what is a great, you know, really looking introspectively, like, you know, what you guys would do. I think you guys do it naturally. You look inside. Whereas, you know, me, I've got more extrovert tendencies. I tend to look on the outside, but I've had to teach myself to look on the inside and be more, you know, emotionally aware and develop that. But that whole depression made me look inside, right? I said, life goes, you better start looking inside because you're running on empty here, you know. So it just woke me up, and that's why I got ill, because I wasn't doing that. And so that's why it led me on this journey where we are now. So it's just empathy for yourself, and recognise that you are on your own journey and that there's support out there for you. And I want you to be the best version of you. And again, it's like, don't think positive now, take a micro step.
Excellent stuff. And I want to take Joe's sincere message and turn it into a cheap plug and say that if you want to build your solid foundation, take that 1% step in a positive direction, maybe you should do it in some Inspirationnation merch. Head over to inspirationnation.org.uk. Let's do a quick, if they're in proximity, a quick mug shot for the camera. Okay. Inspirationnation mugs are on the website, and t-shirts, hoodies, the Jose Noya collection over there as well. If you love Joe and want to show your support for him, all over on inspirationnation.org.uk. Details of the Inspirationnation coaching service there as well. 20-minute free consultation, money back guarantee. Head over, have a look at all of it. And I'll just wrap us up with some of our plugs. Don't forget, check out Joe on social media. Just stick Jose Noya, Josenoya, Inspirationnation into any search engine. If you stick it into Google, you will see Joe taking over the internet, which is fantastic. And check us out on the show at Listen to IN, Listen TOIN. Appreciate everyone's support and follows, helping us get the message out there. If you like what you're hearing, hit subscribe, whatever platform you're listening on, and we'll be out each and every Tuesday. And if we deserved it, leave us a good review as well.
Just want to say,
Go.
That I've got Nina saying hashtag Inspirationnation. There you
Love
go.
it.
Already got it in there on Instagram.
That's what we love to see. Right. Been a good and different show this week, Joe. I've enjoyed it. We've done a few different shows in different ways, so this has been really, really good. Ryan, do you have anything to add, my friend?
In the way that I've told you, I'm not going to mess
we're
around
wrapping this one
with...
up as well.
Yeah.
I've got to come up with a whole new set of catchphrases and lines now. I feel the pressure building.
Feel the pressure building.
In which case, I'll just count us down and start going make some notes for next week.
You just got to be yourself, Lee.
3, 2, 1. Inspirationnation.
Catch you guys later.